All yours.
All right, meeting called to order. Today is Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, Town Council meeting via Zoom. And before we get started, Happy New Year to everybody and wish everybody a safe and joyous New Year. Go ahead, Paula.
Okay, you're not doing prayer or any of that? Huh?
I'm sorry, Ged. I was going to do roll call first, but John, will you lead us in prayer?
Sure. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, we welcome this new year with new hope and a renewed energy. We ask that you continue to guide this council and bless us with the fortitude and the strength to overcome the challenges that may await us in 2021. We pray that you lead us forward with your divine presence, your eternal grace, and your Holy Spirit. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Councilman Licciardi, will you lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United States
United
of
States
America
of America.
Lost you, Jay. I think we lost Jay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Paula. Jay, can you hear us? I'm going to guess not. All right, Paula, move on with,
Okay, I guess Councilman Licciardi's here.
he is, but we can't hear him.
Councilman Messier,
Here.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Here.
Council Vice President Demito,
Here.
Council President Goslin.
Here.
There is a quorum on record. Discussion regarding actions and planning pertaining to address the COVID-19 virus and the impact of town operations.
Mark,
Good evening.
Hello?
we can hear you now, Jay.
It's back.
All right, so I don't know what happened.
All right, thank
I'm
you.
here though.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple of quick town COVID updates. Employee-wise, we're doing okay. We had an uptick this week, so I think we have 9 positive employees, 4 in quarantine and 1 on a long-term recovery from a positive. But overall, everyone's doing pretty well. As far as in services, starting this past Monday, all of our employees have returned to full-time status. There were, a handful that were working split type shift assignments for COVID-related reasons. But we've made some modifications to our facilities. People are spread out appropriately and following the proper protocol. So everyone is back to work now. We're going to continue to monitor the governor's guidance on perhaps when we can open up town hall again, even if it's on a semi-restricted basis. But for now, everything is maintained on an appointment schedule. At the next meeting, I'll have an updated executive order, assuming the governor carries on with hers. That's all I have for that.
Any questions?
Just about vaccines, and maybe it's not you, Mark, maybe it's Chief Verone or a combination thereof. I know that you have some people that have been trained to actually do vaccines, where people stand in line, when that will get underway.
So we don't have a date as of right now. We are vaccinating first responders, the police, fire, and home health care hospice workers. They've established a regional pod in East Greenwich. We staffed that pod yesterday. and things went very smoothly. We are in the process of increasing our capabilities and in anticipation of doing a mass vaccination, hopefully at the Civic Center at some point. We don't have a date for that at this time.
Actually, I have spoken with the people who helped to set up that East Greenwich site, and they were very complimentary of you and the people of West Warwick and how cooperative and helpful everyone's been. So thought I should pass that along.
Thank you.
Chief, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So what employees that we had that had tested positive for COVID, like maybe some firefighters, are they still on the list of the vaccine, or is there a certain amount of time in between before you're able to give them the vaccine?
So it's 10 days after the symptoms started, after the onset of symptoms, and they're not supposed to be experiencing any symptoms at that time. So they would have to get pushed off. So if someone waited till like the last...
So they could get the vaccine right afterwards then, I mean.
Well, what's going on is they're doing 3 weeks, like they're doing Monday, Tuesday in 3 consecutive weeks. So if someone waited for the last week and then got sick, they might miss that opportunity. If they don't get the first shot, with what the vaccine that we're getting is the Moderna, and there's a 4 weeks in between the first dose and the second dose.
Yep.
Can't get the second dose, the first dose at the second dose site. If that makes any sense. You know, if you don't get the first dose, they're going to be out until.
Gotcha. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
So
Guys,
are there
can I-
people, I was just going to ask, are there people that are suggesting or not, because they have had it, deciding to wait because they think they have some immunity?
I don't think anyone is waiting based on that. There is some hesitation from some individuals on the vaccine in general, and we're seeing that in society. So I think, we're probably, Democrats are probably consistent with what the popular thoughts are.
Right. Okay.
Guys, can I make a request? The DPW is considered a first responder, except when it's important. This is kind of important. So if there's any way that we could get put on the list as first responders, I'd like to get some of my people the vaccine if at all possible. Thanks.
So government is considered in general, in the higher end of that. But at this time, they haven't made those. It's just the first responders, people actually going out, dealing with people that have symptoms, that are called on to do that.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions on that matter? Thank you. Paula?
Discussion action vote of town council. Any matters on this portion of the agenda may be acted upon by way of topic, discussion, and action by the town council with the vote on the record to approve, amend, deny, or table the agenda item. Contributions for the following agency. Resolved that the town council hereby makes the following contributions to the following agency for disbursement of funds.
Are we going to hear the list, or should I move it?
There's only, which
One.
ones do you have, Paul? One.
Just one?
It's
Okay,
just
I'll move the resolution. It's just the veterans?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion?
Again, the contribution word, that's fine. Yeah.
Any other questions?
They're just asking for the same amount they asked for last year, right? And the year before that.
Correct.
I do have one question relating to this. Is Kristen on?
Yes.
She is.
Kristen, did
I'm
we
here.
utilize? I don't know if you can remember if we utilized all the funds in this account last year.
I think it was, we used about 7,500. And then at the end of the year, we decided to pay the detail for the parade, and that ate up, once that journal entry was made, that ate up the rest of it
Okay,
for the school,
All right.
the high school.
yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
Councilman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Minutes of the previous meeting, approval of the minutes of the December 1st, 2020 Town Council meeting, December 8th of 2020 Town Council workshop, and December 15th, 2020 executive session.
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
Councilman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Consent agendas, license application, resolved that the consent having been posted, all matters being referred to the proper departments and being disposed of or awaiting recommendation, the same is hereby approved.
Move the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm going to recuse myself.
For the record, Councilman Messier recused himself. Any
The
comment?
only thing that I see is on K, but it is correct on the backup. It says private license, private detective license.
Yeah,
It's correct on the backup.
Yes, it is.
Why don't you move to amend just so it's added and so the record's clear?
So I move the approval of the consent agenda with the amendment of K saying private detective license.
So,
Second.
so amended, any public comment on the licenses? I see none. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes.
Councilman Messier recused himself. Councilman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
bid award for revaluation services, resolved that the town council hereby approves the bid award for revaluation services.
I'll move the bid awards.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Sal, you're on mute if you just want to unmute yourself.
We're good?
We're good.
Okay. I sent a letter. I don't know if everyone's read it or not. We only had 2 bids on the revaluation. There's only 3 real big companies. A couple of the other ones are fill-in assessors. Northeast came in at $358,000. VGSI, which is Vision, came in at $383,000. Currently, we use Northeast. They performed the last 3 revals in town. They did the last full one, which was 9 years ago, which is what we're doing again. They've complemented their company with a couple of new hires. Vision, I worked with when I was in Cranston for 20-something years. I know they're a good company. They have good software. However, switching over at this time, I think it's just tough. It's a small office. There's a lot of conversion involved. I talked this over with Kristen also. So we're recommending that Northeast get the bid.
So Sal, let me ask you a question, and it's only 30,000 or whatever difference between the 2. Knowing Northeast has done our last 3 evals, wouldn't they have a lot of data that they already should and could have?
Yes.
So would that, I would think that would be significantly less for the amount of work. Like the other party would have to come in and do everything fresh in their they're not asking much more money.
Well, they had
So-
a couple of things that they were saying that they would do. They would either use the existing software, which I don't know what kind of licensing arrangements there are for that. I think Warwick tried it a couple of years ago. I don't know what happened. And then, bring in their own software with the conversion. I don't know what they expect to get out of the current to bring over, but it is good to have someone existing there that has the knowledge of the town that's been there. And what's expensive about this is that we have to have someone knock on every door. We're not going in houses, whoever gets it, but they do have to do a actual physical search, of the house, visitation.
Okay. Any other questions for Sal? And Sal,
I have one in general about the reevaluation. This is set for 2022, correct?
To be in place for 2022, they would start working. It would be done by the end of this year.
Right, but okay. And this is maybe my ignorance, I'm not sure, but it seems like it's every 3 years. It just seems like we just had this done. Is there any way that do we have to go every 3 years? Can we go every 4? Can we go every 5?
State law.
Statute calls for these types of revaluations in the time frame. If you were seeking additional time because of the pandemic, I think there is an avenue to take, but you pretty much have to prove your case as to why it can't be done within that 3-year period of time. So I think, Sal, you might correct me on this. I think the Order of the General or the Division of Revenue allows for an expansion of time, but you have to have a pretty good reason to do it. And just because it seems like it just got done isn't the appropriate reason to say why it can't be done again.
Right, you need General Assembly approval, and I think you need a supermajority approval through the General Assembly to get it approved. The 9-year one is the one that cost the town money because there's no reimbursement from the state. The two in between, I know the last two, the town received 80% back from the state, but they weren't as labor intensive as the full revaluation is. But we have to actually inspect each and every property.
So is this what this is right here, the full reevaluation?
Yes.
So somebody's gonna come out and knock on a homeowner's door.
They got to leave some
what?
type of information that, they don't, they'll be back away, whatever the COVID rules are that we're using. There's going to be some type of informative letter or pamphlet that's left for the homeowner with telephone numbers or emails, websites. And then there'll be a quick, look around the property, match it to what is currently on record to verify. And then we'll probably be getting a lot of homeowner input as to any changes that may have been since the last revaluation.
Sal, is it possible? I know when they come out, and I don't want to get personal, but I mean, I'm a homeowner in town as well. And they came out and I got my reevaluation in, and I had a lot of questions on it because it didn't match up. And when I spoke, I went through the process, and I think I'd like to have a workshop on this with whatever group we decide to choose prior to this beginning and them going out, because we get a lot of calls on this, especially when, bottom line is they're going to have to pay. Some people are going to have to pay more money in it for their property. They're saying their property is worth a lot more. I just want to know, as a councilman, what answers we can give to people and how accurate we are as a council giving the information out. Because I felt last time I was blind. You know,
Yeah,
and people are
last
calling.
time
They're
there
not happy.
wasn't much PR done. However, both bids did include sections on public relations with the public to keep everyone informed. A well-informed public is a good thing. We want
Yeah.
everyone to know what's going on, what's happening.
But
That
I
way, there are no surprises.
Right,
So
before,
we're
because
more than willing.
everybody's just. Okay, sorry.
No, we're more than willing to do that. It's built. It's
All
already built in, and we can set it up easily enough.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sal? Do I have a motion to move a specific?
I will move Northeast Reevaluation Group for the sum of $358,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes.
Sal, can I ask just one more question about how much did this cost last time approximately? Do you have any idea? I know you weren't here, but
The last full reval,
yeah.
it was actually more than the 358. I did look it up, and
Okay.
I think it was. I want to say it was 380-ish for some
Okay.
reason, but I did look it up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cancellation of taxes. Resolved that the attached cancellations in the amount of $8,640.26 presented to the tax assessor for approval of the town council in accordance with Article 25, Section 5 of the West Warwick Code of Ordinance is hereby approved. Original list on file in the Office of Tax Assessor.
This
Hold on, nobody moved it, Sal.
I'll
Okay.
move the item.
Do I have a second?
Second, I was on mute, sorry.
Go ahead, Sal.
this list is a mix of some appeals to the values, along with, I think, a couple of motor vehicles that were on. It's been kind of tough working with the split shifts between Ann working a couple of days and me working a couple of days before we were able to get all of this together. But I think the real estate items were appeals that people made to their real estate taxes.
Any questions for Sal?
I just a question on the Natick Schoolhouse LLC. Obviously, that's, I'm sure, the Providence Street School. And I didn't look it up. I'm sorry. What is that assessed at, and how much of the tax break? I think we're forgiving or canceling about $3,735.
I don't have the full figure in front of me, but a lot of the information that was presented to me about the school wasn't noted beforehand on whatever the original tax was. I don't think they're hooked up to water or sewer. There were a couple of other items that they brought up to our attention. I don't know if the school is actually being marketed at this point, if it's just sitting there. This might fit in along with next door to Town Hall, that building there, about putting on the list of abandoned properties and trying to get some action going on them.
Yeah, I don't know how actively it's being marketed. There's a sign down in the parking lot, but I know at times we need to remind the owners to maintain the property because it gets a little sloppy. So I was just curious as to what it was assessed at and how that came to be. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi,
Yes.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico. He's on mute.
You're on mute.
I'm looking at the roll and I'm going to recuse myself. I actually do business with one of these companies.
Councilman D'Amico has recused himself, and I'll vote yes.
Authorization to enter into a contract for the rental of 2 leased trucks with plows from Park Rental. This is to lease 2 5 and 6-yard dump trucks with plows for 3 months in the amount of $21,580.12. This is an emergency procurement.
Council President, I would respectfully request that the council take no action on this item as the business has withdrew its availability of the equipment at this time.
All right, we'll take no action tonight. Next item, Paula.
Authorization for the Director of Public Works to increase the original agreement from $60,000 to $73,095.94 to remove and dispose debris behind Cal Ripken Field in West Warwick. The estimate cost is $109,950.
Move the authorization.
Second.
Second, Don, I have some questions on this because you brought this before the council at a few months back. I want to say probably 6 months, if maybe not even a little longer. Not to exceed $100-something thousand, and the council at that time approved that. Now you're bringing it before us to increase it to 73,000. That kind of makes no sense.
No, that's incorrect. The original bid was 109,000. At the time, the town manager did not want me to go for the full 109. So we took a halfway point where we would do 60,000 and then come back next year and do the rest of the amount in order to complete the project. They were able to complete the project at 73,000. There's still a little bit of work there. There's still a little bit of loam and seed that has to happen, but I can do that in-house next spring. We put hay bales out yesterday. We have a little bit of erosion happening on that little roadway that goes down to the bottom. And again, we just wanted to stop that. So again, I think we're in real good shape. The grass is actually growing on the embankment. We just got to wait for a little bit of warmer weather, and I think we're fine there. We got a lot further along than we expected because of change order number 1, which we allowed the contractor to keep the loamy material. He screened everything, and then we kept all of the big rocks for riprap or for protection around the Factory Street playground. And so we were able to reutilize some of the material that was wasted back there. And by doing that, we were able to cut down the cost dramatically. We didn't send an awful lot to Johnson to get buried.
I agree. I think we approved the $60,000 last time. So when you say the project is done, has DEM signed off on it? I've seen some correspondence done, but have they formally? I thought they were going to come out in the spring and formally approve it.
They're going to come out in the spring when we have full growth out there. We don't have full growth out there. And as I said, we do have a couple erosion areas that we have to clean up a little bit.
So have they done an interim?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just, have we done an interim?
They were very happy with the site in November, early December. And I've contacted them, and they may come out just for a spot check. But right now, they seem to be very happy with what we're doing.
So would we have any recourse should they say it's not done to satisfaction if we're going to pay a bill in full at this time?
Well, you're paying the bill at full, but you're still truthfully, what's 109 minus 73? You still got almost $40,000 available that you didn't spend. If they come back and say there's an issue, it's going to be a very minor issue. I don't see this as being a real big deal. I was also able to get them to agree not to pull out all of the woody material And if you go to the site, you actually see all the trees and brush that we lined up on the bottom. It actually acts as another barrier to the river. So if anything was to wash down, it would stop. There's still some work there. There's a couple of 55-gallon barrels that was outside of the job site, but it's inside of the affected area that we have to get out of there. They're filled with concrete. I'm hoping there's no surprises in those barrels, but right now it just looks like somebody had a couple of big anchors and somehow they got dumped back there. So we'll have to pull them out with a mini excavator next spring.
And we will get whatever we need from DEM in writing.
Yes.
I want to make sure that that's, we have our files closed and that they sign off.
Yep.
So, Don, quick question. We're looking at the $73,000 as basically it's a final payment. There's $36,000 remaining that we thought it was going to cost, which would be the 109. Where is the 109 coming from?
That was your capital account that was set up last year when Ernie was here. There was additional money, and that was one of the projects that you had on the list, as well as the removal of the smokestack up on Pulaski Street.
All right. So it's the FEMA account, correct?
I couldn't answer that.
Kristen?
It's the capital reserve count.
Okay. All right.
Any
Thank you.
other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilman Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Authorization for the Director of Public Works to award the removal contract to AA Wrecking Company, Inc. from Johnson, Rhode Island. The bid amount was for $55,950.
I'll move the authorization request.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Actually, if we could just go through, I mean, I think originally that was also in capital account and capital reserve, and it was put on for $150,000, if I recall. So this takes care of the entire project at 55, is that correct?
That is not correct.
Okay,
It takes the tower down. It picks up the debris around the tower, which is
Yeah.
actually a smaller contract that we've awarded, ironically, to the same company, A&A Wrecking. And they will be out there tomorrow to remove the debris. And once they remove the debris, I'm talking about the debris around the base. It has asbestos in there from the old shingles and fire insulation that they had. Once that's removed, then they'll start tearing down the tower. With your approval tonight, I will turn around and give them a notice to proceed tomorrow. And I talked with them today. They plan on being out there in about 2 weeks. It will not take a long time to take this tower down, which is the major concern for this site, because that tower is already leaning, I believe it's 6 or 7%. So at any point in time, that tower could fall. You have property right adjacent to it. You don't know where the tower will fall. So we want to make sure that we're getting that down. Then there's still the issue of the burnt out building, and that is not part of this particular contract. And we'll come back with a better estimate at some point in time. And again, that's not as big a concern. I can meet all of the requirements for the trust that's up there, and we can deal with that again once we get the tower out of the way.
Don, I know I've had some numerous conversations with everybody about this, and Councilman Licciardi, I know it's your ward. I know personally people have reached out who wanted that property. Now, I understand the safety matter. You want to take down the stack on top, and we talked about taking it down and maybe one day recouping our money. But after we take the smokestack down and it's safe in the area, at that point, I think we reach out or maybe put this up for sale. I don't know how much more of taxpayer money we want to put into this when somebody else will take on the burden and actually do the work and save us the money. And again, the only reason I'm agreeing to this tower is because you're telling me it's going to fall, which has been there for almost 100 and almost 200 years, and it hasn't moved. But again, I don't think we should be putting hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayers' money in a piece of property when other adjacent properties have reached out to us or have reached out to other council members and said, hey, I'm doing development here. Hey, there was somebody back in 2004 and 5 that were looking to put a construction company over there. There's many people who still want this land. So again, I think once the tower is down, we need to address and maybe get it on the ballot for the financial town meeting, and then put it up for sale or auction, do whatever we can. I just think sinking too much money into this property that's been sitting there for many, many years is a waste of time. But other people want it for parking lot. Other people want it for different things. And again, in Councilman Licciardi, I think you've had conversations with individuals or people have reached out to you. Some individuals reached out to me. So, it's something we can look at.
I don't disagree with any of that. I will tell you that that tower is structurally unsafe. And I will tell you that Jim Jeremiah also determined that that tower is structurally unsafe. When you start looking at the cracking that is happening on the top of that tower, it's not going to be here many more years or many more months at this point. So you do need to act on it.
And that's why I said I'll agree for the safety reasons. And after getting the pictures from Jim Jeremiah and you a couple of months back, I don't disagree with that. I just disagree with putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into cleanup when people want the land. And even if we gave the land for $1 and they took care of everything, to me, that's a savings.
Agreed.
So Don, just to clarify, that 55.9 is a smokestack, period. It's down by the end of the month, possibly?
Possibly by the end of the month. And again, there is a small additional amount because we have to clean up the debris before we even start taking the smokestack down. Smokestack has fly ash in it, and it has some stuff that has to be treated and has to be disposed of one way. The debris that's lying on the ground that's been there for 20 years has asbestos in it, and you have to turn around, you have to wet it down, you have to dispose of it properly, has to be double lined, and that's all being taken care of starting tomorrow. And I don't know what the dollar amount was on that.
Who is taking care of that? That's not something we do, correct?
Again, that's a contractor. AA Wrecking is doing that. And we've had a environmental firm very much involved, and this is through Jim Jeremiah for the most part.
So, but like ballpark, what are you talking? Are you talking 5,000 or 20,000?
Yeah, it's like 5,000 or 8,000. It's not a whole lot. There's not that much debris there.
All right, so then that's done. Then we're working on the 55.9 to take care of the smokestack.
Correct.
Okay.
So the in the package, it does have Jim Jeremiah. And if I recall, we actually, at some point as a council, allotted some money to have Jim act as the town engineer because we don't have one. And this is precisely what we've asked him to do. I did know in the letter that he sent, you had to go back to, and I don't know if Jim's on the phone or not, to be honest with you, but you had to go back to the people that bid. First of all, it's astounding to me that Manafort Brothers would be at 313,000 compared to 48,400 and 59,000. That's obviously an incredible difference, which either means they didn't want it or there's something else going on. Is there any, and I guess maybe this is a solicitor question, is there any problem with they had to go back to these bidders to actually get some more information, and it was outlined in the letter from Jim acting sort of as the town engineer.
We had a long conversation about this last night, and the thought process is that it may end up costing a lot more than what has been anticipated. And that's why the Manafort bid might be where it's at, because there's a lot of unknown quality and quantity of what's in the debris, what's not in the debris, what's in the building itself. So this one, the town's going to be careful on it, because again, if Council President Goslin is correct and the town can put it up for sale and there's a potential bidder, that might take away that expense end of it. But if there's no potential bidder, at the end of the day, if the town is going to have to take that property, clean it up, take advantage of whatever Brownsfield Act provisions we can, this is going to be we're going to be stuck with what the people, the vendors tell us, and it might end up costing a hell of a lot more money than what is being anticipated right now. So I know that doesn't really answer your question.
How would we
I
know
guess-
that, Tim?
Yeah, so I guess part of the first
Yeah,
part of the
Bart-
question, though, Tim, is the letter from Jim Jeremiah talks about AA Wrecking did not properly fill out the total cost for bid item 2. That Costello Dismantling did not fill out it. Is there an issue?
I would say yes, because if unless there's going to be some type of, as we talked about it last night, the remediation of this document, how do you afford the contract to a vendor if they didn't properly fill out the preliminary documents that were required by the town? So it could possibly cause a problem, because if the town's not satisfied with the vendor's response, why would the town provide them with the bid?
I'm
Can I
asking you.
cut in here for a minute?
Yes.
All three of them missed the line item number 2, including there was a second bidder in there as well, which was Costello Dismantling, and they were at 59,000. So they were in the ballpark. Manaford's was way out of the ballpark, and I'm not sure what they were looking at. Everyone missed the ash disposal, which was 7,500 from AA Wrecking, and Costello had it at 77,000. So again, they seem to be reasonable. And then Manaford's was at 31. It looks like he just added a factor of 4 to everything. I would recommend moving forward with this.
Again, I think
So,
we all do want to get
question
this
is-
taken care of, but I'm concerned again. Is this a contract that we're going to wind up being concerned about
Well,
being
If-
properly
the
awarded?
matter can be, I mean, unless AA Wrecking Company has a contract that's ready for review and the council can take a look at it along with the solicitor and the town manager. I mean, I don't know what the particulars of the contract are going to be, or the specifics. And if AA Wrecking is going to allow for, an escape clause in the event that they find that the environmental makeup of the property is more than what they thought it was going to be, that's going to cause some problems in the future. But I don't know. I mean, awarding them a contract based upon dollars alone without looking at the contract, it's very difficult, or the proposed contract.
So, Don, have we seen a contract, or Mark, and again, I don't know if Jim's on the phone.
I'm looking right now through the stuff. Give me just a second. I believe it's just the bid spec. And I do know that we've been in contact with DEM, and we've been in contact with an environmental company. And all I can tell you is when I'm looking at this and I'm looking at Jim's recommendations, he basically concludes that this is a responsive and responsible bid, and they're recommending that we award to A&A Wrecking Company. So the contract will still need to be completed,
So my concern
So this is-
without knowing what's in that contract, it sounds unfortunately uncomfortably familiar to me that we've gone through this process before. And if we're talking about environmentals and we're talking about potential significant cost, I just want to make sure that we're covered. That's all. And I don't know if this covers us.
I would think that DEM and the environmental agency that the town is already utilizing would have a lot of play in this particular contract to make sure that the town feels comfortable that its vendor is going to do what they say they're going to do, and also address what happens if there's an unknown issue that's going to be discovered in the future. Because, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And again, it might be because Manafort didn't want it, but when you've got two companies that are putting in, their bids, 55,000, 66,000, and Manafort comes in at 344,000. Why even waste the time bidding if you're going to be so much higher than your other two competitors? So
Is
I'm
it
always,
unreasonable?
I've been leery of this project since its get-go because of the location, where it is, what's happened in the past there. So there might be a lot of surprises. And David was on the council when it was, there was an attempt to have some type of commercial development there, and it was.
No, Timmy, that was before my time, actually.
I'm sorry, David. It was Council President Flynn before your time, right? But there's always been problems with that property, and I would think that again, if the council is going to select AA Wrecking Company based upon the recommendations of Don and Jim Jeremiah, then I would think that the contract itself is going to have to be looked at by both DEM and the environmental agency to make sure that the town can be protected as much as possible and what the industry allows before they go forward with it.
I will tell you that I do have from Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation. They have turned around and reviewed the generator profile sheet, and basically they've come in and said it's fly ash and debris from the chimney. So it has been looked at again by DEM and by the Resource Recovery, and it was, I want to say, Precision Analytical was the environmental firm that got up into the chimney, took the samples and stuff. Again, I don't think you have a huge amount of debris inside that's going to cause you a problem. What you do have is the stuff outside, and it's asbestos, which is relatively easy to take care of.
So Don, just quick question. Again, and I don't want to confuse the two. If we were to say yes to this tonight, then you were going to make the call tomorrow to have them take care of the outside of the chimney, correct?
Correct. They're doing that already. They're coming in tomorrow to remove the debris.
Do we have everything in place for them to do that? Contract signed by us for them to do that? Insurance? All that kind of stuff? Is that already been?
Yes, all of that, the
all that?
insurance and all that has been taken care of for the debris.
Okay.
So I guess so what they're starting tomorrow is not taking down the chimney. It's cleaning up the stuff around it on the outside is what you're saying.
Correct. It's all the debris on the ground.
Okay. So is there any harm in getting all the documentation again, because this sounds eerily familiar to me, and having the solicitor take a look at it and make sure that we are covered?
I don't have a problem with that. The contract is basically the bid documents. Once we get all of the insurance, the liability insurance, I'm trying to think, there's performance bonds and all of that stuff. Once we get that, then it's a signed contract, and it's just the bid documents. So we can provide all that to you.
I would prefer, I would feel more comfortable having that, because the last time there was no, you know what, we'll go back to Factory Street Playground, and we had a similar situation. There was no contract, the bid documents we used. I just don't want to fall into that same trap. And we're talking about environmental it could wind up being very costly. I just want to make sure that we're protected. That's all.
Okay.
So Tim, I have a
Again, that's my
question on this.
opinion. So I want to hear from the rest of the council as well.
I push for this. So I have a question though. So once we award the bid, whenever we award it, and then we sign the resolution for this, shouldn't the company provide a contract to us?
Well, they
And
can,
then, or do we need that?
when
An
you're talking,
itemization of what they're going to do. I mean,
right, you want to
Can I
know as close as that you can as to exactly what services they're going to provide, what the expense is for those services, and what those services entail.
So
So
Tim,
Any-
and I don't want to cut you off. We're going to be talking about this all night when this is a simple fact. Don, if we approve this tonight, you're required to get written documentation of scope of work, which I know is in the bid, but as you hire this company, if they can give it to you in writing with their proof of insurance and all that, that goes back to you and you can give it to the town manager and Tim to look at it and approve it. That's all we need to do at this point.
Absolutely.
As long as
so
we
this would be
Relate-
subject. This would be subject to that meeting the
Sure.
approval of the town manager and the town solicitor.
That's what I would say.
The town is not going to be on the hook until the contract is signed. So if it takes some time to work out the details and to make sure that the town is protected, especially because of these environmental issues, that's fine. And should the vendor at any time, not cooperate, there's a problem there. But again, I would be more comfortable with the environmental issues being looked at by our own expert, our own analysis to make sure that the appropriate wording is in that contract, so we know exactly what they're going to take down, what they're going to remove, the quantity of what they're going to remove, and whether or not there's a potential for hidden expense.
And do
Again,
we
I
need
think
DEM permits? I don't know. That's the other thing. Do we need, I know you've been in contact with DEM, or actually, I think you said Rhode Island Resource Recovery, but do we need a DEM permit to do this? Those are all the questions that I have, and I just want to make sure that we're covered. And I agree with you, David.
I think if the contractor pulls for $54,000, they're responsible to pull all permits that needed, correct?
Exactly.
So if they need a DEM permit, they need to pull that permit. It's just like if there's a building permit that needs to be pulled or a wrecking permit. I mean, I know you have to pull a permit to wreck a house, so I'm sure you have to pull a permit to wreck a
Demolition permit,
chimney.
sure.
So at that point, that would be on their responsibility. Now, Don, I will say this, I don't want to see that a permit was issued after it was taken down.
Absolutely.
So you got to make sure you talk to them on that matter. Also, the one thing I want to point out is in the aesthetics of it. That's going to change the West Warwick skyline. If anybody who lives in Ward 3, 4, and 5 up on the hills, that's part of the skyline. And if I was a photographer, and I know there's a couple out here in the audience, and I know I'll probably reach out to one or two, I would take pictures of that skyline because that's going to definitely change over there in that off the Cohasset Ave, Church Ave area where you look over and you can see that giant smokestack sticking up in the air. So that's just a part of history. I'm worried, just figure I'd throw that out there too.
So I guess I would, after all this discussion, make the motion that we approve AA Wrecking Company with the understanding that they need to provide the documentation necessary to satisfy the town manager and the town solicitor as to the contract.
Second.
Any other discussion?
And that would be prior to doing any work with
That's
the smokestack, correct?
Correct. Any other questions on the smokestack for Don? Hearing none. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Purchase of a bale arm mower. Resolved that the town council hereby considers the purchase of a Traeger roadside mower for the use by the Department of Public Works for HP Fairfield of New Hampshire. The purchase will be made through Sourcewell Master Price Agreement, membership number 105063, and will be funded from the following source: capital reserve account to be reimbursed through the lease escrow funds of $125,392.90.
I'll move the request for the purchase of the flail arm mower.
I'll second it, but I do have some questions. You're on mute, David, but I
You
can
have to
tell by
second
the
it to get
smile.
to those questions.
That's exactly right. Yes, that's the only reason I seconded it. So if I recall, we talked about a flail mower, and I keep in mind I know nothing about it, so you have to help me out here. We approved or talked about a flail mower maybe a year ago, maybe right after Don started working, and maybe even before that. I never thought it was $125,000. I thought it was more of an attachment that went on a mini excavator or something along those lines. So I was shocked when I saw the 125,000, and part of me wonders, is this overkill? And I don't know the answer to that. And should we be looking to use some of those funds? We haven't gotten to the snowstorm conversation, but maybe redirecting if indeed, because in my mind, the flail mower solution as an accessory, if you will, was more like a $20,000 item as opposed to $125,000. So, and what will this be used for? I mean, hopefully not just the bike path. Those kind of questions. So I've looked at a lot of videos in the last couple of days and seen some of these things can take down entire trees. I was kind of amazed at what I saw. I guess I'm just wondering, is this overkill, and could the funds be put to better use for snow equipment that we seem to desperately need?
Okay. You actually approved the purchase of this as part of the lease agreement.
I understand
earlier.
that. Yep, but
And-
the original amount that came to the council back in January of 2020 was actually like $25,000, and then it became $125,000 in September.
That was my mistake. I took their old estimate before I was able to do a lot more research on. I think I'd been in the office 2 weeks at that point in time.
Okay.
But anyway, not trying to make excuses. I've used these flail mowers and they're extremely valuable. All of the streets that I hear that you want brush cutting, and I'm thinking each Greenwich is one.
Wakefield is one.
Wakefield is
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
These things are incredible, and they will save you incredible amount of manpower. You go in, you knock it down, you do it a couple of times, and it's easy maintenance after that. Right now, you have to do everything by hand, and nothing is easy. On a lot of these streets, you have to get police details. You will not have to get a police detail with this because it'll be in the shoulder, off the shoulder. The debris gets left there, gets chopped up where it composts. It's a very, very valuable piece of equipment. When you get that tractor, you can also then turn around and say, well, I want to put an attachment on it so you can go with regular lawn mowers and stuff like that to do large areas and stuff. So it does have other uses other than just doing the flail. But the flail arm itself is about $25,000. You're spending the $100,000 for the new tractor, which is a 5100M John Deere tractor. I'd recommend, I think it's a good piece of equipment for you. When I listen to the issues that get presented to me all the time on, well, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, and I have to cut a crew completely out. And a lot of the drainage problems that we have, this would come in very handy as well, because we could cut the brush down to get access to the drains where they need to be worked on. Again, I think this is a valuable piece of equipment. Is it the most? Go ahead.
No, so you're saying, so could it be moved or could it be helping in snow removal as well, or is this strictly a springtime cut trees,
It's a
landscaping kind of thing.
year-round cut trees, but no, it would not be used for snow removal.
So Don, and I think, and Mary Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you're asking for 125 and we approved it. I know some questions were about our lease agreement came about tonight. I know Kristen sent me an email about it. But you're also looking for trucks for snow plowing. At this point, what is more important is the question. I understand that we need both, but what is more important at this point?
Dave, if I got money from you to buy a new plow truck, I wouldn't see that new plow truck until August or September. It takes that long to get a vehicle. You can't authorize the money in November and expect to see a plow vehicle in December. It just doesn't happen that quickly. The current plow truck that has been approved and it's been ordered, we won't see that until the end of March.
So Don, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you have to go by the bid prices and all that, but I visited Hurd today and they have 3 dump trucks equipped with plows sitting in their parking lot for sale. White, red, and blue, dark blue. So the question would be, I mean, we have a good relationship with police. I know when Councilman Tucker was on, and I know John, Councilman D'Amico has both worked with police, and police has done a lot of work with the town of West Warwick. I mean, maybe you want to take a ride up there tomorrow, and Hurd is owned by police, by the way. It's not
Okay.
Hurd. And reach out to police and see what they can do for us, and maybe we can get lucky. Again, you know, I don't know what size dump truck you're looking for. I think these were 550s. I mean, I'm not sure what size you're looking for.
We actually need the full size dump, the 2-ton, 5-6 yard dump trucks.
It wasn't that big.
Say again?
It wasn't that big.
Yeah, we need the bigger ones. And the reason why we need the bigger ones is 3 of your big trucks this year, the frames were completely rotted off and we had to deadline 3 of them back in August.
And let me talk to you about that also is, you know, when we buy these new vehicles, we might want to undercoat the frames because I've been hearing a lot of that lately of the frames rotting away.
Yep.
And that's what they're used for is salt. And I understand that. But if we undercoat them when they're brand new and prevent that, we might be able to protect those frames a lot longer than what we have in the past too.
From what I understand, the last 5 or 6 years, that's exactly what Terry's been doing, has been turning around and treating them and painting the bottom so that they last longer. So that is being taken care of, but realize a lot of your fleet is 15, 20, 25 years old.
So like when I go down Route 37 and I see trucks over at Tasker, and I agree with you. I've looked at, David, I've seen Flood Ford has some. There are a bunch of places that have these out there. So those aren't big enough, and those wouldn't help at least somewhat in our snow removal at this point in time.
They would help. Obviously, anything that plows snow will help at this point in time.
I guess I'm wondering, knowing that the lease is no longer available, and I think we should, and it's a discussion we'll have in a bit, but we should be going back out to contractors with something that's more attractive. But I guess I wonder if there's and this machine, is it even going to fit on the bike path? Those are the kinds of things that I was curious about as I looked them up in the last couple of days. And could the money be better spent elsewhere? And I did have a conversation with Kristen asking her that question. And evidently it is something that would be entertained by the people that we have the lease with.
We can turn around and take a look at that. If you want to delay this, we can. I have a different option for you. And when I did my analysis of where my budget is, and I'm just using the major line items, because we didn't hire employees, and when you run through all of the numbers, right now the DPW is 275,000 in the black. If we maintain through the rest of the year, we're going to be close to $500,000 in the black. If you want me to go and use some of my operating budget to go take a look at used vehicles, I will pull Terry, who's our expert on vehicles, to go out and analyze some of these. And if we can pick up a couple of 550 plows for 100,000, again, I'm thinking 2 vehicles, not 1. I'm more than willing to do that, but it's you have to agree to allow me to use the personnel accounts that we didn't utilize the first quarter of the year.
Well, we can't
Well, I think-
utilize, we can't authorize that till the third quarter of the year, going into the
No.
fourth quarter.
But again, the question becomes, can we get a flail solution for cheaper than 125 and use some of those funds for some trucks to help should we have an issue?
Yeah.
Again, I'm
The
hoping we don't
machine
get
that
another
was spec'd
snowstorm.
out is the machine that was spec'd out is the right machine for the town. If you choose not to go that direction, then we don't go that direction. We tried for the last 2 years to try to rent them, and you just can't rent them. Again, it's a valuable piece of equipment. It does make the town look a whole lot better. You are able to do a lot of work with it. I don't disagree with you. The biggest problem right now is plowing the roads. So if the council wants to redirect that money to plow vehicles, that's fine. It would just, by the time we go through the procurement process, the best we're looking at is at least a month and a half away. You're looking at mid-February. Well, mid-February, you're at the tail end of winter.
Yeah, this is my thoughts on this. Like, I get it, the plowing is an issue, but if we just wait, I remember where we were when we had this conversation in the end of September, and the bike path looked awful, and we were trying to come up with a solution, and now we're kind of trying to come up with a solution in January. And I think that now is the time to do it and not wait until the summer. And you laid out a bunch of things that it's not going to be just for bike path. You mentioned several different things that you'll be able to utilize it for. So there's going to be a cost for anything, but how many man hours would be spent on how many man hours would be saved by utilizing that on the bike path? Coming through the bike path, right? You would be able to know better than I would how many hours you'd save using that, correct?
It's a tremendous amount of savings on manpower. There's absolutely no question. We spent a week out there last time and we didn't get nearly as much as we really wanted to get. This would be something that once you get it all caught up, would be a very easy maintenance thing once or twice a year to go out and run and knock down all of your brush and all your debris.
I have a couple questions and comments. So a couple months back, I was having issues on East Greenwich Avenue, and I'm literally talking about maybe 100 yards. And so Don came out with Freddie, and he said, all right, we'll get a crew out there tonight. The stuff's growing into the roads at this point. And I don't remember exactly, but I think it was a crew of 4. There was a police detail. I think it took maybe 3 or 4 hours to complete it. And I thought to myself, this probably cost $1,000 for about 4 hours worth of work. I don't know if you actually have a price on that, Don, off the top of your head, but in addition to that, when I saw this number, like Mary Beth, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. But I started doing a little bit of research on tractors. I'm not a farmer. I'm not, I don't know that much about them, but I couldn't get over how much they actually cost, running from like $100,000 up to over $300,000 for some of these tractors. But I do know we need it. Whether or not we're willing to spend this much money, it definitely is something that the town would benefit from. So Don, my question is, how long do these tractors generally last?
There are John Deere tractors from the 1920s and 1930s that are still running today. They're a simple machine. They're not going to be involved with the salt at all. You're looking at a piece of equipment. You should get at least 30 years, if not longer, out of the tractor. Now, the flail mower itself, you probably will replace at some point in time, but the tractor itself will last forever.
5,000 somewhere in there for just the actual.
Say again?
How much is the flail mower?
About 25 grand.
Oh, they're that much. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So Don, could we look into possibly checking out a used tractor that would fit a brand new flail mower attachment?
If they last 30 years, that would seem to make some sense to me as well.
And the reason I'm saying it, I understand where you're coming from. However, as a councilman, I'm also looking at numbers, and there's not a hell of a lot of money. I mean, we're throwing around $100,000 here of savings we've had and of purchases, but that gets chewed up really quick. And I just want to make sure that with all the issues we're having with different vehicles and equipment, that we're really going to get the best bang for our buck. So, I mean, like John was just saying, Councilman D'Amico, on East Greenwich Avenue, if it costs, and just again, this is the number John threw out, say it's $1,000 possibly that cost. Is it better to spend that $1,000? I understand it's intensive labor, but if we have to spend that $1,000 a year for the next 5 years, that's still a lot of savings that we have without buying this attachment, you know?
Jason, I understand where you're coming from, but the truth is that was 100 yards. We probably have 1,000 or 2,000 projects where that flail mower would be useful and should be utilized every year. And you're at least 10 or 15 years behind where your brush should be cutting it back. So I hear what you're saying, but that's a very short view of what we try to do with maintenance. And,
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the motorcycle place that had the drainage issue. Well, the drainage issue was the brush that had grown behind the fence in the brook area and stuff. It took us almost a week and a half to clean that out.
That's adrenaline rush. They've had a lot of issues there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I'm just before we
does it need to be new, I guess.
Yes to this.
Yeah.
I would recommend it new. If somebody's selling it, you have to end up why. And again, this is a piece of equipment that's not going to be, it's not going to go away tomorrow. You're going to have it for a long, long time. If you buy it new, you might get 5 years out of it.
Excuse me?
I said, if you buy it used, you might get 5 years out of it.
Well, again, I thought you said if you buy it new, you would get 5 years out of it.
No,
I thought,
no.
yes, that wouldn't work for me. So, but you talked about John Deere's being, 30, you find some that are 30 years old. I guess, again, 125, I agree we need a flail mower. I agree that we need that kind of work done. We talked about that a lot this spring and summer and fall because the roads were not in the shape they need to be. I do wonder about the dollar amount, even though I know it was approved. And you just kind of, my head was spinning when you said there are 2,000 projects that this could be used on. That makes me nervous. Do we have that many projects outstanding?
Every one of your drainage issues resolve with getting to a brook or a stream. And if those are overgrown, you have to get in there and you have to clean it out. This tractor with this flail mower will get in and clean out the majority of those. We're not just talking the bike path. We're not just talking East Greenwich. I can't remember the one I did for you, Jason. It's off from Cohasset, but there was a road up there that we did. Again, you have a tremendous amount of work.
So will you?
I don't disagree with you
So
about
Don,
the snow issue.
Don, there is a question from the Q&As, and it says, why can't we put blue diamonds on the brand new Mini?
Exactly. I thought one of the reasons we got the Mini was because we needed it to get into some of these drainage issues. And this machine, from what I saw online, looks like it's a really big machine. I mean, I've never seen one in person, but
it's not as big as it looks. The tires are very big, but the machine itself is not overly big. The Mini.
Don, do we have to make a decision tonight? Can this go to the next council meeting?
You can go to the next
Which is
council meeting.
19.
If that's the direction you want to head, then fine. I will see if I can find something used, but I'm not holding my breath on that.
I don't want to say yes or no tonight, and to make a decision, I don't think it'd be, in being all fairness.
I
It's
move
just a
that we
lot of
table
money
the
to
item.
say yes or no.
Can I,
Yeah.
can I just say, I don't know if they would allow us to use lease funds for a used vehicle. So please keep
Okay.
that in
Okay.
mind.
But,
Okay.
but overall, we may be able to move things around. I agree. Thank you, Kristen. But I would move that we table this for tonight.
Can I make
I
one
would
more
second that.
comment? You're leasing this for
Yes.
7 years. So your actual annual cost on this is going to be, what, 7 divided by 125? It's going to be $20,000.
All right, I have a motion and a second to table, so I have to stop discussion.
I'll second it.
I already had a second. Councilman
Oh,
Licciardi
sorry.
seconded it.
Apologize.
Roll call vote. I answered a couple of questions in the chat also. So, and I'll write them down and we'll get answers for those. Roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes, to table it?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
I mean, can I just ask, when are we tabling it just till the
Table.
next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, then that's fine then, yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Appointment for the Library Board of Trustees. Resolved that the town council hereby appoints the following individual to serve as the Library Board of Trustees member for the town of West Warwick. Term to expire on February 2021.
I'll move the appointment. Sorry.
No, I was just, go ahead.
I was going to say I move the appointment of Matthew Silva to the Library Board of Trustees.
And I would wholeheartedly second that. Matt is very involved in the community. I did receive some other communication from people and constituents that wholeheartedly would recommend him as well. And I think he'd be a terrific addition to the library board.
I would second that. Absolutely.
Moving second, and I will say, I've got to see Matt kind of grow up since I met him way back in his younger years. Very strong-hearted, very involved with St. Anthony's, very involved, wants to be very involved in the community. His mother and father are always involved with the Portuguese Holy Ghost Society and many things in the community, and Matt is decided to follow in their footsteps with that. And wonderful kid. I hate to say kid, but I know he's an adult now, but I know him as a kid, and he's definitely a good fit in that department.
Now I know.
I agree. Matt is also, he's helped out with the egg hunt and the Halloween party the last 2 years, and great addition, great help, and he knows his stuff. So I think it'd be a no-brainer.
Great. Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
Yes.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And we need to go back to number 10.
Yeah, I know. I jumped the gun there.
That's okay. You want to get going. I get it, Paula, but that's okay.
She got the phone call. She got the phone call.
From the Batmobile. Yes, I know. Yeah.
Discussion action, continued discussion on feasibility of new road bond in 2021, sponsored by Council Vice President D'Amico.
So we began this discussion last year, toward the end of the year, and we said we would pick it up again in the new year. So I guess my question is, at this point, what's next? Like, if we were to pursue this, what's the next step? Anybody?
I guess we would want Kristen to weigh in on that. I know that there had been some review of the possibility of doing that, and I guess maybe Tim would need to weigh in on it as well.
I believe it would have to go on the FDM or to legislation to a vote. if the voters want to go out for a road bond? And then the process would start?
That's correct. The last two times it's gone to the voters to approve the issue of the bond. And normally it's going to indicate how the monies are going to be spent. So if there's a $5 million road bond, normally it's $1 million per award, utilizing whatever information is available right now through DPW as to what roads would require the work to be done sooner rather than later. So, I mean, it's been done. It's been at least two done.
So Tim, we had discussed, possibly looking at the bond as a whole in terms of the entire town, maybe appointing people from around the town or different departments to possibly go out, seek out the roads, maybe, as council people, we could recommend.
Councilman, that's a great idea, and that can work.
My question is,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
My question is, can that be, like, in other words, does the bond go out for vote, and then we can make those determinations as to who's going to be on a committee or however? I mean, is that putting the cart before the horse, or what's the process?
Councilman, I will say in 2006, I received a binder from engineering group that Paul Thomas, our DPW director, handed to us as new council members of list of roads that should have and could have and maybe would have been paved. And again, I will say the council still at that point looked at, the council person still went above and beyond, took that list and went and looked at roads that they thought needed to be paved. And I'll give you an example. We hired this engineering company. I think they spent, I want to say, close to $100,000 of that money to do that. But for instance, Bridge Street was on their number one. It was in their top one in Ward 2. Well, Bridge Street never got done. It finally needs to get done, but here we are talking 14 years later, not then. So I think we can use our own expertise and probably save ourselves a lot of engineering money by using, Don Oulette and the councilman and the councilwoman of the wards who can bring these roads before and decide to get them paved and get bids on those. I hate to waste money on having an engineer or somebody go around and deciding which roads can be done, because I'll tell you, the top roads in Ward 2 weren't the top roads. Like Bridge Street was one of them. And Bridge Street at the time only needed crack filling, and they did that, and it lasted 14 years later. Now it's starting to get some potholes here and there.
And I do agree with what you're saying. So my concern is, and this is something that I mentioned when we first talked about this, my ward is in desperate need of roads. If we say we did a 5 million and we divided it equally 5 ways, I can easily say that I have way over $1 million worth of roads that needs to get done. Lonsdale Avenue alone is $370,000. That was the quote that I was given. So, I mean, that's just one road.
And I don't disagree with you. The previous councilman of your ward, he took the whole $1 million and put it on East Greenwich Ave. Did all of East Greenwich Ave need to be done? Probably not, but all of East Greenwich Ave got done. So, I totally understand what you're saying, but I know in Ward 2, just Gough Avenue, Harris just got paved. Woodside Avenue, those are all $300,000 roads and $250,000 roads. And I can go through $1 million. Phoenix Avenue for Ward 1 and 2 needs to be done. So, we could probably spend 5 million in a day, and we know that. It's just, how do you do it fairly?
I would weigh in and say, yes, I agree that, first of all, we keep throwing 5 million around.
Well,
maybe it's more than that. Maybe we do need more than that. But I would take a tack that we look at it as a town as a whole, and then decide how it gets split up. I mean, it's a small enough town, and it's silly to say, here Ward 1 you get this. Well, maybe Ward 1 doesn't need that much, or maybe there's other ways, and you don't have the ability for block grants in Ward 5. So that's an issue that you you're kind of behind the 8 ball. So I think we should look at it as a town. I agree with you, David, 100%. I think we can handle that. We have the expertise to handle it in-house as to what we might need with the help of DPW and maybe Elaine can help a little bit. I think that we should look at it as a whole and then figure it out. But I assume what we need to do is sit down to come up with what we think that amount should be, and then talk to the finance person as to what we can afford as well.
And I just want to point out one other thing. We're talking about bond money. And I will say there are some wards that still have bond money available.
Right.
And, I hate to go get another bond when, if somebody else is hoarding the money, or if it's sitting Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, why don't we utilize some of that before going to get another bond? And let us know how much is left in there. And then between all, and maybe we can help each other out here. And then when that time comes for a new bond, and again, if we have to put the bond out, we have to put it on the all-day referendum for the financial town meeting. There is a special, I will say this, and Paula, give me the date. There is a special election coming up in February. Or end of January for one single question. March? Mm-hmm. For one single question. I'm not sure if we can add that to the ballot, but.
Yeah, and I came into the council with pretty much no money left. I did have the money, but $1 million of it went towards a drainage project too. So I can tell you for sure that there's definitely, I'm sure every ward has some issues, but I know specifically on my ward, I was not able to fix any of the road issues except for that drainage project. So it definitely could be utilized.
Dave, if you want any questions on that ballot, the deadline is January 11th.
Don't forget that one.
The election, for the election for March.
So Dave, to comment on what you just said, I have $150,000 remaining in road bond, and part of the reason that I waited was, and this is I'm also going to bring this up for the road bond, would be I was going to use it on, I wanted to use it on Church Street, and I waited because we put in a grant for it, got denied. The second year it got approved, so I don't have to use it on Church Street. Then I set my sights on Coit Avenue. Those are the two that I really wanted to get done, both the arteries of Ward 4. Now I just found out that, and I was set to use it on half of Coit. Already got pricing for it, and we get a letter from the Kent County Water Authority from Bob Boyer, who mentioned that the water company is coming in, I believe, next year to do Coit Avenue. So thank God I didn't spend any money on it, because I would have been in some big trouble. So
that's exactly right. We need to work with them. Yes.
Yes, all the utility companies, because I know 4 years ago when I just got on the council, off of Legris Avenue was all torn up. Tampa Street, not quite, but Tampa Street, Atlantic, a lot of the roads in there, which luckily I didn't have to use road bond on, because the water authority paid for it. But there has to be a lot of coordination with this, because I just don't want to spend money if we don't need to. So I agree with a lot of definitely what you are saying, as far as we don't need an engineer to come in and tell us what roads are bad. We travel them every day. Our men travel them in the DPW trucks. They should have input on that as well. As far as money per ward, I think it should be divvied up within each ward. And I respect the fact we are a whole town, but if you have people in Ward 5 that they come home every day, they go to Greenbush School, drop their kids off, they take the highway to work, they may never be in Ward 1 or Ward 2 or even come across to Ward 4. So I think we should have some discretion on how that money is spent.
I don't disagree that there needs to be some discretion, and maybe we need to sit down and talk about it as a whole. But to just say Ward 1, 2, 3, I mean, even the footage or the mileage of roads in each ward has to be different. So it doesn't make sense to just say it's $1 million a piece. I don't think that's my point.
I just think the 5 of us can get along. I think we all get along enough where we could we should have a lot of information in front of us before we make this decision.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
okay.
is going with the utility companies, getting the input from Public Works, definitely Don and Freddie. And also having a list of maybe for our ward of what has been done to each road within the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, because it all makes a big difference.
So Councilman, let me give you a little bit of history. Ward 4 owes Ward 1 and 2 because when Councilman Padula and Councilman Goslin gave up
Battle
on
Royale.
federal grant money for Church Street in New London the first time around to Councilman Gustafson, it's now time you got to pay us back.
No, you're talking what, 4, 8, you're talking about over 10 years ago.
No, actually,
You know, it's not,
8 years ago. Church Street was paved.
But I agree, we could all sit together, and whether it's in a workshop or
I'm just-
however we do it, we could come up with what's best for the town as a whole.
Yeah, I think you made a good point, Mary Beth, that a workshop is probably the way to do it. I mean, now, obviously, Jason has streets in his ward that need to be done, and he has his discretion in Ward 4. But I think if we do it that way, we could have a workshop and come together, and all 5 of us go, all right, well, here's some streets we need done in our town, and then we could prioritize them together between the 5 of us and the DPW and whoever else needs to be involved. Of course, we definitely include Kent County Water, and because we don't want to, like Jason says, you don't want to pay that money to pave a street that's going to get ripped up in a year. So.
That makes sense to
and
me.
I was suggesting more of money coming to each council person for their ward, maybe an allotted amount, and then a remainder of the money be town-wide, and figure on the 2 worst roads in town that we could get to, and just use the remainder of the money on those. Something to that effect. I mean, this is all down the road, but John, I agree with your comment. Yes, we should go forward with a new road bond.
And
That's
again,
assuming that we can afford it. That's assuming we can afford it. And that analysis, Kristen, I know some of it's been done. So we would have to have a conversation around that as well.
Yeah, we had a timeline. We discussed it with Adam, our financial advisor, and we had a timeline set up. And we're within that timeline at this point, but it's a process, as we know.
So it's a process that probably has to start fairly soon if we have any hopes of being on the financial town meeting.
Yeah, and we would also want to see if they have any road and bridge money as well, because that money is usually pretty cheap.
Kristen, are you able to outline that for us and send something out so we get a sense of what the process looks like?
I have it in my office. I'll see if I can get someone to dig it out for me.
I appreciate it.
And then I can send out the process. I've already documented it. Let me go back through my emails. I know I've documented this process a couple of times.
Okay.
So let me find it, and I can send it back out.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
and again, we would have to get this, if we're going to do it for this year or next year, we would want to get it on the all-day referendum for the financial town meeting as a question. So we would definitely want to have our cost analysis done before we have to get that in. And Paul, you don't have to give me the answer tonight or the council the answer tonight, but can you tell us when that question would have to be submitted to the state to be put on the ballot? When you get a
The
chance.
deadline for that is
Yeah.
January 11th.
No, that's
No.
that's the March.
Oh,
the
for the
meeting.
financial town meeting?
Yep, when you get a chance.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
we could get the ballots printed a week prior. It all depends on your workshops and you guys approving it.
Yep. All right, thank you. Any other questions on that matter? Thank you.
Thank you.
Kane County water bills versus West Warwick sewer bills, sponsored by Council President Goslin.
I just want to keep this short and sweet, and I want to bring it to the forefront now. And actually, this is for Councilman Licciardi and Councilwoman Williamson representing us on the sewer committee. One thing that everybody's been talking about is the new water meters and the expense of the Kent County water bills tripling, quadrupling, and some people going up to $500-600 a quarter. Well, that also, and what people have not been talking about, and I know this is a lot in Coventry, and I know I just swapped out my meter early December or late November, so I'm waiting for my new bill to come in. But what people are not looking at is ultimately we're going to be sending out sewer bills based upon water usage. So if you guys can just put that on the forefront in the sewer use and bring that back to Harrison and group, so we can start looking at that now and avoid havoc when our tax bills go out in June, July, and all of a sudden people are getting $2,000-3,000 sewer bills. So again, I just want to bring that up, and I want to bring it to the forefront now, and that's all I really have to discuss on that.
Yeah, it's a topic that I have had several people contact me as well, David, and it's something that we will discuss and need to make sure we understand what the impact will be on the sewer bills. But you're absolutely right. Water usage is indeed the basis for the bills that are sent out. So we'll have to figure out how to modify that if necessary, because the water usage may not be going up as much. It's just a different way to approach it. So yes, I agree with you.
We had that conversation. I think I called you a couple weeks ago, David, because I know it's better for us to get ahead of this, because 100% when we send out these tax bills, it will be brought up again. If all these people have it go up, and they, immediately will just think we raised the taxes. So whatever we got to do to get ahead of that, I think is great to do it now instead of waiting.
That's it. That's all I have on that.
Update on snow removal issues from December 16th, December 17th of 2020, sponsored by Councilman Messier.
I sponsored this, but I'm sure everybody has their input on this. And I guess I'll kind of defer to let Don start and kind of give us an update and find out what happened. From my perspective, before I hand it over to you, I wasn't able to, during the storms, I like to try to drive around and see what's going on. I was home that day sick with COVID, so I wasn't able to go out and do that. But I dealt with more calls during that storm than any of the 5 winters since I've been on the council. The roads were atrocious. And, I just kind of want to get an update of, why you think that was the case, what we can do as a council to not have that happen again. I don't like to micromanage, and we've talked about this before. But in a storm like that, we weren't getting updates either from you, Don. And, during the storm, when I get a call, we're blind. So we get a lot of them. And I've spoken to some of the other council members. We get a lot of calls during storms, and we have no ability to give people like information, because when we don't know what's going on, it's not, I feel like I'm just like, yeah, they're out there, they're doing their job. But I'd like to be able to give more information to the people. I don't want to have to micromanage, but obviously you guys are too busy down there to be answering calls to plow different streets. But if you kept us informed during a storm, we could easily send you lists of streets, which I know that we did. Here's the 5 streets that need to be checked on. I think it would help everybody and keep us more informed and keep the community all informed. It's one thing during the middle of a storm. I get it. I understand how it's done. I've been out there with the guys before, and obviously the main roads come first, and then the secondary roads. And if you live on a side street or a dead end, you're going to be pushed back. You're not going to be in the front of the line to get your street finished. But I think it did take a long time. So if there's something we can do as a council to help you guys do your job better, let me know, because, I think that the last storm was, there's certain times in this town as a taxpayer when you can truly see, your tax dollars at work, and a storm like that is one of those times. And unfortunately, I don't think it was a good showcase for the town of West Warwick, and it wasn't a good showcase for the guys out there that I know that are busting their butts doing as much as they can. But obviously, there was some plan that wasn't in place, because the roads were atrocious.
So, Councilman, Mark, if you want to jump in, go ahead.
Yeah, like you said, it's my interim job to manage that. So I'll share what, Don and I met, and, I've dealt with a few people that are knowledgeable in the field. But just to kind of recap it, obviously we understand that snow event from December 16th into the 17th tested us and quickly overran our immediate capabilities of the Department of Public Works. Obviously we commend the efforts of our crews. They were out there working tremendously hard, exhausting time for, in excess of 30 hours during that event, with minimal rest. And we were overwhelmed and obviously fell short to what I consider our usual exceptional response. And that happened for a variety of reasons. the most significant and obvious reason was the amount of snowfall that we received in a short duration. I spoke to a few of my colleagues in other communities, and we were not alone in that because of that snowfall during the short duration. But our biggest deficiency was lack of actual equipment. And that is also has a few reasons. Obviously, we're down a few town-owned vehicles that have been deadlined and not replaced as efficiently as we should have over the years. And more glaring is we have less vendors this year than we had in the past. And that has some reasons too. So just to kind of quickly go through the memo that I sent out on our after action assessment, the available piece of snow removal equipment was obviously inadequate. So we talked about adjusting the rates for our private vendors to make them comparative to similar communities to attract those vendors back. I believe we lost in excess of 4 or 5 from years past for a variety of reasons, probably. So that will hopefully be done by the end of the day tomorrow, if not the following day, to re-advertise and directly solicit some private vendors to bring them back. Obviously, Director Ouellette already mentioned we have 2 vehicles that were recently purchased that were awaiting arrival. One of those could be operational within a few weeks, waiting on some equipment. But more important, the big dump plow we won't see until after this snow season. Renting equipment is another option that fell through this week. We're still kind of in the queue. If something comes up and that opportunity presents itself and will be helpful, we'll reassess at that time. There were some missed sections of roadways. Primarily that happened because we had 4 unassigned areas in town due to lack of equipment to assign to them. And the hope was as the workers and the plow operators were able to handle at least opening up their roads, to be able to divert people into those unassigned areas to quickly get them open. But due to the volume of the snow, that didn't happen efficiently. And that's something that needs to be addressed through a variety of methods. We're looking to enhance the use of route maps and street documentation, that as the workers finish their routes, they submit those so we can check them off, and utilize a route manager or supervisory inspection process a little more thoroughly throughout the event. We talked about internal communications with the DPW supervisors and the road crews, and that request for attention and services be directed to the director, assistant director, and the secretary simultaneously, so they can be properly assigned and followed up. Interdepartmental request for attention and services should be called into the secretary directly and then supplemented with an email if people wish for follow-up and documentation. We spoke of updates to town administration, that the director or his designee will provide a periodic email update during the storms to the town manager and the town council, to include but not limited to any manpower issues, equipment issues, safety hazards, geographical concerns of interest, and other obstacles to efficient operations. And then obviously we'd always do an after action report that would include performance and fiscal information. We spoke about our employees. Obviously we have a good group of core people, some senior people that know our streets, but they have been diminished over the years. So we have a lot of new people that may be new to the town, new to the streets, more importantly, new to plowing, in the process of getting their CDLs. And that training takes some time. It doesn't magically happen. And when you get your first event is a significant snowstorm, and you're having your permittees out there, trying to get a little bit of experience, that sets us back a little bit. But the youngsters did a very nice job, picked it up quickly, and hopefully we'll continue that. Hopefully we don't have another one of those significant events this year. And obviously for future strategic planning, we're going to assess the private vendor solicitation process. We're going to make some adjustments to that immediately, but we'll also assess it for next session, next season, and make sure that it's done in a timely manner. And, obviously the director had mentioned, reviewing our assets in preparation for fiscal year 2022 budgeting and capital needs. So I think we can collectively say, this was a big event for our first one, some obvious deficiencies that we recognize, some not in our control, many that we have some control over. I'm confident in the director and his staff to be able to address the ones they need to make it more efficient during the next storm. And collectively as a town administration, and hopefully working closely with the council, we can assess some of those bigger budget items that we can take care of immediately on an emergency basis if we need to, and then prep ourselves to move forward safely and efficiently.
Do you think that the pay for the private vendors led to a lack of getting enough private vendors? Because I know that Don had mentioned.
Yeah, speaking to others, I think we're on the low end of the scale to comparative communities, and that may have been a deciding factor where if you can go, a town line over and make an extra $10 or $20 an hour, that's where you're going to go. I understand that, so we're going to address that. Like I said, I'm hoping to redo that with the director. We've been exchanging emails and doing some research that hopefully we can set that up for tomorrow and reach out to some other vendors. We may be in trouble for this year in the respect that, people that have equipment have already committed to other communities.
Yeah,
but
of course.
At the very least, if we're able to get some people that, might be subject to part-time availability, we might be able to piece together a kind of a core group of reserve people that after they finish their private contracts with whatever shopping plazas, that maybe we can get them into town to help us so we can divert our people to where they need to be.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really not that big of an investment because you're figuring how many big storms are we going to get a year? And, you do the math, it's worth it to have, even if you have to pay a little more in the future, whether it's this year, or probably more looking forward to next year, it doesn't seem like it's that big of an investment when you do the math of how many storms we get per year. And plus, I mean, when we see that we obviously needed a little bit of help on the last storm.
Just like anything else, you want to be competitive and, you want to be able to provide efficient services. So
yeah,
that's something that we're going to assess and we're going to address immediately.
We may want to err on the side of being generous if we're looking to get some of those. I mean, I think our conversation, Mark, we were somewhere in the 85 area, where there are other communities that are 100, 105, even up to 120. And I agree, getting people to sign up now. However, we also might come up with different ways to get the word out, whether it's social media or however because just putting it on the website probably is not going to get us enough attention that we want or attract people. And maybe it's word of mouth. I mean, that's maybe we can all make sure we contact people we know that are in the business that might have some interest also.
And I want to step on the director's toes. I prefer to make it a team effort to fix the issues and offer whatever support I can to help them during the next event, hopefully in 2022, maybe.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I just want to add one thing. I'm not going to be a dead horse. I mean, we're all in this together. We all play a different role. And a lot of the complaints that I got, which I'm sure everybody did, but it always followed up with, and this is because people don't know, I called DPW and nobody answers. So I left a message. Some people say I hung up. Maybe, and this is just a suggestion, we have an upcoming storm coming. Change the message at DPW. So let people know, yes, we are receiving your message. Leave the message. We will add it to a list. Because I know that's what Tracy had done, is listen to the message, added it to a list, and just made an ongoing list of streets that needed to be touched up. But people don't know that. So when they call, they're already frustrated and angry. So if DPW gets the first call and nobody answers, we're getting the second call and people are already irate. And like Councilman Messier said, this is where they see their tax dollars. So in response, the response that we give, that I gave after I knew this was happening was, yes, you're on a list. They're getting inundated with calls. Somebody's going to be first and somebody's going to be last. And everybody else is in the middle. So it gives them some satisfaction and some comfort that knowing that this is happening. But when they don't know, all they're thinking is, I haven't seen a plow since 10 o'clock. Who's coming by? I have to go to work. It all is around communication, but we all have to be in this together.
So Councilman,
That's all I got.
Councilman, I got to visit DPW during the storm. I went down to talk to the secretary and the foreman who were on duty when I walked in. I will say I did get to hear a lot of those messages, and it is very hard. And I understand that some people the phone might not be answered because they're on the phone with somebody else or whatever it may be, because we only have one secretary at the time. And when you're getting inundated, but she played the messages for me, and some of them said, my road's not plowed. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no information. There's no
message.
phone number. Hold on, Councilman Messier. There's no phone number to call them back at. I've seen some in defense, people are calling, and I've had people message me and say, my road's not plowed. Well, that's great. I know who you are, but I don't know what road you live on. So I had to ask. And granted, there was things that we failed on, but also listening to some of the messages down there, it was kind of eye-opening in her defense. And, on any given day, on a normal day,
I'm
what's
not
that?
saying she did anything wrong. I'm not saying that Tracy did anything, or the secretary did anything wrong. I'm just
No.
thinking it will be less of a burden for everybody, including her, including us, if the communication would be out in advance.
Yeah. And again, I'm not
That's
saying,
it.
but I'm just pointing out that some residents didn't even leave their road. They just said, my road hasn't been plowed, and stuff like that. So
We all get that. Right? I mean, we all get those. You said I got plenty of those on my. So as long as the message said, we're in a snow event, leave your street, and if you and then we'll get to it. Or if you want us to call you back, leave your phone number. I think people would at least feel heard. And I think a lot of times that's what the constituents want to do. They want to be heard.
yeah. And again, it's just like Mark said, it's personally, they're going to work on it. Hopefully it's resolved, and and hopefully our next storm isn't that big. And let's face it, we will get another one. But again, anybody who plows or has been behind a plowed truck knows that this storm was a little difficult, and the way it came down and the hours it came down. The timing is also an issue. When it's coming down 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning as fast as possible. And again, counterparts, like Mark said, Warwick had a very tough time with this storm. Cranston and Coventry, they seem to do, depending on what pots and what areas, they did a very nice job. So again, like everybody said, it is taxpayers, they see it, they see their tax dollars at work, and they definitely want their streets cleaned. And, and again, we have younger people who just started with the town, and to see a foot of snow on their first event, surprise. So, it is a learning curve, and, I don't care what anybody says, plowing is an art. I've been doing it since I was 17 years old. So that's 30 years, and I still make mistakes. So I just want to, and again, hopefully we can get this resolved and get the manpower and the contractors in here, because the first question I asked was, hey, where's my guy? Because he's always done my area. Well, he didn't come back this year. And unfortunately, I haven't reached out to him yet, but I'd like to know why. If it's money, it's money. If it's another reason, I'd like to know why, because he always did my area pretty well. There was other former town employees who retired. The day they retired, we found out that he retired because a new guy plowed their neighborhood and things changed. And I'll go back to the Graham days, Andy Graham days. As soon as the day he retired was, I never received a phone call or a complaint in those areas until the day he retired. So again, new people, new roads, it's very difficult. And, it was a 3-day, 4-day event for us. And unfortunately, it took a very long time. But in the end, we got through it, and hopefully we can continue working through it.
Yeah, and you mentioned something, David, which I think is a really good point, and we as a council could help. You had a new guy in your area. I think, and I'm going to do this before the next storm, kind of send a pre-storm email. If there's some streets that I have where I'll get the same complaints because there's certain issues with that street, maybe you have to plow a certain direction or a different way. So I think it is helpful for us if we let them know ahead of time, like, hey, whoever's doing this area, here's some things that you need to, keep in mind before the storm. I think it helps too when they know this going in, as opposed to in the middle of the storm and they're not going to be able to check that as often.
And you're right. I have Navarre Street that has a hidden turnaround, and we have a a ride bus who comes in every morning and has to use that turnaround. Well, we as a town sometimes forget that turnaround. I do send a message to Freddie, and I think I sent it to Don this time, text message. Hey, just an FYI, whoever's doing my area, don't forget the turnaround at Navarre Street, because I know I get the call as soon as the storm's over, or I go do it myself. So
yeah,
I just, and I try to avoid that because I don't want to, use my truck on the town road if something happens. But again, we're working on it.
Yeah.
And I think the process, I think we all agree it was a difficult storm, sort of a perfect storm, if you will. And Mark, I appreciate you taking the time to work with the director and coming up with some ideas as to how we can make it better and improve it. And I'm sure that will happen next time around.
Yeah, I'll reiterate that. Thank you, Mark.
Anything else? Go ahead, Paul.
Discussion about ways to improve removal and efficiency for upcoming storms, sponsored by Councilman Messier.
Yeah, I think we covered all that on the last part. I was kind of one issue, so I don't think we have anything more really to add to that.
No.
The FEMA assistance to the firefighters grant has opened, and the fire department would like to apply for 2 grant applications. The first is for a new tower ladder. The tower ladder is 23 years old and has sufficient repair costs over the past 5 years. The cost for a new tower would be $1.3 million stripped. The submission would be for $675,000. The second submission would be to replace our aging portable radios with tri-band radios currently operating a WHF Warwick and Cranston on 800 MHC. Coventry is on UHF. If awarded, this will improve communications between agencies. The match for an AFG award is 10%. Sponsored by Council President Goslin.
Yeah, so Paula, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean for you to have to put all of that on there. That's pretty much, what I wanted to present to the council. So I'm sorry, Paula, about that. But yeah, so the grant did just open up. We had a Zoom meeting with Senator Reed and his staff about applying, and there's about $320 million for apparatus, which is up about $4.5 million from last year. Last year, they received about 1,100 requests for apparatus, and they fulfilled about 125, so about 10%. Yeah, so the numbers aren't good. It's a significant amount. We have a good need. Our truck is right on the borderline. 25 is about the time that they really want to see. So our truck is right around that period. So we're going to take a stab at that. The other aspect of the grant submission are the portable radios. Most of our radios are in the area 10 years old. They really want to see something older than 7 years. We do have some that are newer. But a capability change is really what we're looking for and what the focus of our grant would be. When we go to Warwick and Cranston have both upgraded to 800 megahertz communications. When we go to Coventry, they use a UHF frequency, and we're on VHF, and so is East Greenwich. Right now, we have we have an 800 and we have a VHF radio. We do not have any UHF capability. This would allow us to have the capability to communicate with all three on all three bands with one radio.
What's the cost of that one? I have a couple of questions, actually, Chief.
Yeah.
So the submission for the ladder, tower ladder is going to be 675.
Yep.
So where do we suggest the other 625 comes from, and how does that work?
So we do have an apparatus replacement plan. Okay, so the fire department receives with our rescue billing a certain percentage of that back into an apparatus replacement plan. That plan, as well structured as it is not structured well enough to be able to buy all of the equipment that we need. You know, so what we're trying to do is to offset that. If we were able to get this close to $700,000, it would go a long way in making this money more sustainable. Presently, we're getting about $200,000. I mean, yeah, $200,000 into that account for apparatus. You know, we need to buy the rescues. Our rescues run 24/7. They last as a frontline piece about 4 years. The most recent rescue that we purchased was over $300,000. It's $340,000. You can see with 2 rescues, that funding really barely covers just the rescues.
Right.
Okay, so there's not a lot of money left over after that. So that's what we're looking to be able to supplement that, or you know, with a grant for a good part of it.
But so
Chief,
again,
when is the
so
grant due?
you talk about $1.3 million as a stripped down model,
Yes.
and
Well,
so is there a time frame that you have to use that 675? I mean, again, are we on the hook to automatically if it's awarded the next budget year to put $625,000 into to get a ladder
we'd
truck?
be able to get a loan or a lease, you know, for the remainder and
Okay.
have the majority. If we were successful in getting this, it would go
Okay.
you know, a lot easier than.
But there is a time frame that we have to spend it within.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. It's usually a 1-year period of performance.
Okay.
And you can usually get a few month extension if there's any difficulty. Like right now, it's about 14 months just after you put the request in. So they're understanding about that.
Okay.
You know, to
And
build.
how much are the radios?
So the radios are around $7,000 a piece.
Okay.
Now, I believe that we qualify to get 42 of those radios. Then there are mobile radios, and there'll be vehicle repeaters that would all be part of that grant. I believe that was about $540,000 in that ballpark. I don't have that particular number right in front of me. I'm sure John.
Anything we need to do to improve our chances, or is it just luck of the draw? I mean, how does that work?
All right, so the grading, there are 2 different characteristics of grading. One is based on the community need, you know, the finances of the community, the run volume that the community goes on, and that gets scored. Then in addition, they'll look at how old your apparatus is, what the need of that is, and that those 2 things are put together and come up with the final score.
Thank you.
Councilman Licciardi, I know you had a question.
Yeah, I do. I know it's a big just like with a flail mower, it's a big dollar amount to commit to. if we say, yeah, go for the grant, and we get the grant for the apparatus, at that point, we're on the hook for the remaining 625. When
Yeah,
you're talking lease, are you talking
I
like
am.
3
In the
million
next,
or
but
10
in the
million?
next, say that again, I'm sorry.
I'm just hesitant only because, yes, I'm not saying we don't need it, but when it comes time to actually come up with the money, the remainder of the money, we really don't know what kind of financial position we're going to be in. And everything leads to everything else with budget time. So I'd love to say, yeah, chief, go for it. And if we do get it, great. But then it's like, all right, we need to pay for this. So would you have a better perspective of if we owe the money over 2 years, or we owe the money over 10 years, 12 years?
So our Councilman, our portion of that, if we're lucky enough to get that money, our portion of that can be spread out over 7 to 8 years.
Okay.
We are probably, if we don't, it's more than likely we won't get it, but, if we're lucky enough to get it, we should absolutely hop on it. In the next few years, we're going to have to buy that 1.3,
Okay.
what's 1.3 now, and it's going to be much more of a challenge for the community to buy
Right.
at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
So that application's going in now?
Yeah, it opened on Monday and it closes February 12th. So we're updating our numbers and getting all.
Might as well give it a shot, since we know we're gonna need it. Can't hurt. I mean, it'd be terrific if maybe Senator Reed can come through for us. How's that?
Certainly would be.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Upcoming appointments, Sewer Use Board of Review, 1 alternate member, vacancy with the term to expire 10/21. 2 vacancies, term to expire 10/23. Pension Committee, 3 vacancies with terms to expire 2021, 2022, and 2023. Patuxent River Authority, 1 vacancy with the term to expire 6/30/2023. West Warwick Public Library Trustees, 2 terms to expire February of 2021. Recreation Committee, 1 vacancy. Juvenile Hearing Board, 1 vacancy, term to expire 12 of 2024. Tree Warden, West Bay Community Action Board, West Warwick Representative, 1 vacancy. Board of Assessment and Review, 1 term to expire of March of 2021. Public comment. Designated portion of the town council's open meeting for citizens to address comments to the town council relating to matters affecting the public business, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-2, 3 and Rhode Island General Law 42-46-2, 6. Comments will only be addressed to the town council, who will take them under advisement. When addressing the town council, please state your name, address. Please conduct yourself in an orderly and respectful fashion. The comments of citizens accessing this portion of the meeting are neither adopted nor endorsed by this body, but heard as requested. Members of the town council being duly elected by public body as identified in Rhode Island General Law 42-46-2. 3, have no obligation to respond to the public comment.
I have public comment. I have a hand up in the air. I just want to point out 2 things for the council, and if you can get me some dates by tomorrow. We do have the applicants for town manager. I know Mark and Sherry, we're going to go over some of those applications, but we've had them in our possession now for well over a week. I know a little longer than that. So the holidays have gone through. So if we can schedule a meeting, we'll probably have to schedule a meeting to go through those applications in executive session. And also we have contract negotiations. One of the assignments that we gave a couple of weeks ago was to go through the contracts. And I think we're going to schedule an executive session for the 19th for that. So I just want to point out those two things, but the town manager aspect and the applications are in our possession. So if we can choose a night that we can go over them, and then we can probably decide how we're going to interview, and also schedule those interviews. So again, if you can just get back to me by tomorrow morning, and CC Mark on it too. I have a person with the hand up. I'm going to allow to talk. It's Jerry Lee. If you just state your name and address for the record.
Gary Late, 172 Prospect Hill Ave. Just a couple things for consideration. You guys were discussing the bids earlier, and one thing I did notice about the question regarding the contract of a bid, it's actually up to the individual or organization or body that is putting out the bid to supply the contract. It's your responsibility to know what you need to be done. If you leave it up to the contractor, they're going to just put in whatever they want to do. So, I mean, it's not a point of discussion, but it's just something to keep in mind as you guys move forward with this. Regarding the flail mower, as a taxpayer, it's actually kind of confusing. If we're renting, leasing, financing this equipment, and if we're actually buying this equipment, how is it going to be housed? Because we're talking it's going to last us 30 years. It's not going to last us 30 years if it's sitting outside in a dirt parking lot. So that's definitely something that Don needs to take in consideration as he's selling this to us. Because at $17,000 a year to lease it, that's great, as long as the company that's holding the lease is quite all right with it sitting outside for a period of time. Regarding road bonds, Councilman Licciardi actually ended it up real quick at the end, and he did well. But I think we as a town need, and I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. You're fighting for your own wards, but we have to look at the town as a whole, right? Everybody looks at the middle as Arctic as the center of town, and we need to stop focusing on that part of town first. All right. Nobody drives down West Warwick and when they hit town hall and don't think it's West Warwick. We need to start addressing the roads in that area and start addressing that area in itself. And hopefully we can put some of that money from those bonds in that area. That's pretty much it. Just a couple of things taken in consideration.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Any other public comment? Please raise your hand.
Actually, David, if there isn't any, I have one other question about the flail mower. Just that the bid itself that's in the documentation is from back in September, and I don't know how long those are good for. That's just a question I have. I am not sure how that works. So that's something that, Don, you should take into consideration as you're looking at providing us some more information.
We opened the bids on Thursday, I believe it was, and when we opened the bids, the low bidder was HP Fairfield. HP Fairfield submitted a Sourcewell bid back in September, which is what I used for the estimate. And Sourcewell is sort of a nationwide master price agreement, or is a nationwide contract. I was told that wasn't acceptable, so we went out to bid. And when the bid came in, it was still HP Fairfield, but it was their bid, and it was a little bit more than the Sourcewell bid. I then called them and asked them if they would honor that price, and they said they would honor that price. I don't know how long they would. If we delay it, it may cost us another $3,400 to go by the original bid, which I believe has a 60 or a 90-day hold price on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I do have two people, actually. Pete Cottrell, your hand keeps going up and down. Do you want to speak? Raise your hand. And I will allow Pete was first, and then I have one more after that. Pete, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Good evening, councilors. I just want to,
Just state your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry, David. It's Pikachu, 25 Nowicki Street. I wanted to go back and touch on the snow removal. I know I reached out to Jay personally, myself, and I appreciate if in fact that he had the plow come through here. My wife, Jay will tell you, I sent him a very detailed but not nice email. I can tell you, if I was sitting on the council and I had to make a decision, I would push for someone to be no longer in the position after that debacle. Colonel Knott has touched on one of the things of having supervisors. Where were the supervisors afterwards? I mean, my specific neighborhood was atrocious. Atrocious. I have a gentleman that lives behind me on that corner. Most of you guys know where I live. If you come around the corner, he has an adult son that he's bedridden. He doesn't have much time left. Chief Verone can go back into the call records and see how many times they responded to that house. For the past 2 years under Director Picozzi and Mr. Olet, I don't know why they're just going around that corner and they're dumping a full blade of snow in front of their driveway. Myself and other neighbors, we've shoveled them out. I, with my snowblower, have done it. He had hired a private plow this time to push the snow in the event that his son had to get out. Going down, I don't know if Don is still on, going down towards that dead end, that is a private road. That took 5 days to get plowed out. That storm happened on a Wednesday, Thursday. They plowed that on a Monday. Why is that happening on a Monday, 5 days after a storm? That's one thing. I don't know if he wants to elaborate on that, but this was atrocious over here. I can tell you, I honestly did in front of my house after I reached out to Councilman Messier, because my wife is a essential medical employee and she needed to get to work, and we weren't touched for 24 hours after. So I took it upon myself and I went out in the street with my snowblower and did half the street so she could get in and out. And after I did that, the plow came by, which I'm good with that. Another thing I want to touch on is how much money are we going to, as taxpayers, are going to dish out for River Point Park before we hold somebody responsible? Because if that was any one of the taxpayers in this town that illegally dumped stuff back there or anywhere in town, the council, the police department, Mr. Williamson, you guys would be holding me or anybody else financially responsible to remove that stuff. So if you have to go back on past DPW directors who authorized that, then they're the ones that should be paying for that, not the taxpayers. And I have one last question for Chief Verone, if he could answer it. In reference to the ladder truck, what is the trade-in value of ladder one now? When you brought this to light last year, when you went to purchase, we'll call it ladder two, this was brought to surface. And I believe I don't remember what the figure is that you threw out there, but is that still on the table to have the ladder one traded in and use those finances towards the new truck?
Yeah, so two different things. So yes, we can sell ladder one or trade it in as we have to declare that when we submit the grant. So if we get the grant, middle, we would have to say that we were trading it in. Otherwise, it would be we have to prove that it will no longer be an emergency response vehicle. Or
Okay.
we could put it as it was going in reserve. But right now, I think what we want to do is the people that we got the E1 ladder from, ladder 2, were
Correct.
interested in purchasing that. So they wanted to make sure that we gave them a call. So we would be offsetting. I don't know how much they would offer us. In looking around, that type of truck in that year is between $25,000 and $30,000.
That would be a great help. That would buy other equipment that's not being purchased as a stripped vehicle.
Right,
So,
right.
no, so that, and it also offset that $600,000 to $700,000 too.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
I just want to, I don't, like I said, I don't know if Don is still on here, but I'm just asking him to point out, or even Colonel Knott, that continuation towards West Street, towards the dead end, that's a town road. That needs to be opened up when they plow, not 5 days after. That, in my humble opinion, I've worked in the safety sector. Many of you know that if there was a fire at that house down on the end, or they had to get that gentleman out of the house in a hurry, it wasn't happening. It was not happening. So I'd like to see, Colonel Knott or Mr. Olette make that not a priority, but put it on the list to be plowed, because it hasn't been done in 2 years. I can tell you that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Pete. Well noted.
Take a look at that, gentlemen, sometimes tomorrow or the next day.
Thank you, Don.
I'm home. I'm sure you know where I live. I'm usually out in the yard training the new family member, so I can point it out to you if need be, if I'm out there, or stop by, knock on the door.
Okay.
Thank you, Pete. Derek, just state your name and address for the record.
Derek Reed, 62 Andrews Ave. I just got a couple questions, actually 2 questions and something else. Where's the DPW director shopping for these trucks? Are we in state or out of state? It seems everything that he's bidding and trying to get for the department is coming from out of state. And I'm just trying to figure out why I understand this big tractor, if he wants to go get this big farm tractor, that's going to come from where they grow hay and stuff like that. But trucks and equipment is readily available in this state at this very moment. I can take you right now and make a call, and we could do this at 9:30 at night and get you as many trucks as you want set up with plows by the morning in Rhode Island. There's no need for the excuse of, well, March, April, July, February. I can do this right now. I already did it over the phone to see if my facts were right before I say it. So the excuse of we can't get plow trucks for the town, and we can't get 550s, we can't get 650s, which is a 5 to 6 yard dump butt bed, or 750. Listen, I'm in this industry. I'm not buying it. Okay. The other thing is, what is the width of the bike path? Does anybody know?
So it's definitely wide enough to get a dump truck down, because I've been down there seen the dump trucks on it.
That machine that he's looking at, without the flail mower on it, is 102 inches wide. With the flail mower, I don't think it goes down that bike path without taking the fence down with it. So why we're buying an army tank to cut down brush is beyond my wildest imagination. There's no fields in the town of West Warwick where we can bale hay. We're not feeding cows. We're not cutting pastures. If you want to put a big mower on it, it's just not feasible. It's really not. And then the other thing is, during snowstorms, the discussion was out tonight about contact with people calling and can't get in contact and whatever. I'm not one of them. I don't call you guys. I just do my own road if my road's not done. My road was down the pavement before any other road in this town during that last snowstorm. But my suggestion is people want to hear voices, not answering machines, and then especially not getting a call back. I think what we should do during a snowstorm is we have more, apparently right now, we have more DPW employees than we have trucks to move snow. Maybe we take one or two more of those people and put them on the phone lines and answer the phones, answer the people, and maybe they won't be so arrogant and obnoxious by the time you talk to them. And that's about all I have tonight.
Thank you, Derek. I have a Tony. I'm going to allow you to talk. Just state your name and address for the record.
Antonio Andrade, 17 Wilson Street, West Warwick.
Hi, Antonio.
Hello. I'm calling to some of the comments on the snow removal. Are we going to buy the trucks or are we not?
They're not available.
Mr. Veach says he can get them. So why doesn't he hook up with Don Tamava and go purchase them? Simple as that. Everybody's complaining about how the snow was removed and how it was done. Nobody was out there to know what was done and what wasn't done. What areas were covered and what areas were not covered. I know because I was down there. I know, Dave, that you said we're going to get the trucks. I just want to see the trucks because nobody has to drive those trucks but us. So we know what it's like. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tony. Jerry Lee, one more hand.
Jerry Late, 172 Prospect Hill Ave. With all due respect, I do think we need to start listening to the Reed family. They have a lot of understanding of what is going on in these parks. They have a lot of understanding of what's going on with the equipment that needs to be used. With no disrespect to Don, but I think the Reeds have a pretty good idea of what we need to be looking at, what we're purchasing for our DPW, what we're doing in our DPW. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. One more hand up. Derek?
Derek Reed, 6200 F. In response to whoever that just was from DPW, first of all, you can come on here and you can accuse and call people out, whatever you want to do. I had to come home on Thursday, not snowing anymore, and plow my road. So if you were somewhere in West Warwick, you apparently weren't in Arctic at all. I used to plow for the town of West Warwick under Paul Thomas, okay? There was no such thing of a road not being plowed at least once during any snow event for any emergency vehicle to get down the road, let alone 2 to 6 feet off the curb on your first snowstorm when you say your job is done. So let's get to the bottom of the problem. Let's solve the problem. I'm willing to work with the town with the problem. I don't know everything. The last person that knows everything is Jesus Christ. He's nailed to the cross, okay? But when Paul Thomas was running this town, you weren't going home until you saw the curbs and every intersection was open to its fully extended, whether it was a 4-way, a 2-way, a 1-way, a no way. Every dead end, every corner, every road, every intersection, every drain, every fire hydrant, everything. It doesn't happen no more. So don't go saying, well, Mr. Reed, if Mr. Reed can get the truck. Yeah, Mr. Reed can get the trucks. Who wants to go? Call me tomorrow. We'll go. I spoke to Mr. Tasker tonight during his whole meeting. You want to go get trucks? I'll take you to get trucks. Have a good night.
I am going to allow Tony to talk again, but Tony, please, as you represent yourself as a town employee, please use caution.
Tony Andrade, 17 Wilson Street. I'm not here to get into arguments with anybody. I'm just trying to state that a lot of areas in town were not covered because we did not have the manpower or the trucks. That's it. If Mr. Reed can get the trucks, it would be greatly appreciated. That's all I am saying. And as far as staying until the job is done, a lot of guys stay a lot of hours. A lot more that's, let's say a lot more, as Mr. Knott said, over 30 plus. So Mr. Reed knows what plowing is. Spend 30 hours in a truck. That's all I have to say.
You're on mute.
Eric, I know your hand's up. I don't want to go back and forth all night with
Oh,
you.
no. Hello?
Tony, you're still not muted.
I'm not muted?
I'm going to mute you now. Go ahead, Derek.
I'm not here to argue, Tony. And, you know, I'm just stating the facts. That's all. 30 plus hours, no big deal. I'll tell you what. If I had the time, I have a couple of former DPW employees that have already contacted me, want to know if we still plow for the town because they want to get in one of my trucks and take the Arctic section again. I'm not interested in the challenges, but I'll do 30 plus hours standing on my head. Okay. No big deal. Just, we need to just all work together. I'm a taxpayer, but I got the equipment to do it. We just need to understand how to do it, what to do, how to handle it, get the trucks. I understand you're understaffed. I understand you're undertrucked. I understand there's a lot of new guys. We'll figure it out. That's all I got to say.
I think we can all be comfortable in that Mark and Don have worked together to come up with a plan to make it better. We all agree that what happened in this last storm, and that doesn't mean anybody wasn't working hard, because everybody was working hard. We understand that. But I think we have a plan in place, and if that doesn't work out, we'll work together again. And I agree with you. We need to all work together. We all want the same thing. So.
The hand up. Jerry Lee.
Gary Late, 172 Prospect Hill Ave. So let's just move along and let's get some positions filled in town. Let's get Mark appointed as our town manager, and let's get Paul appointed as our town clerk. And we get all this stuff taken care of very shortly.
Sure.
Sounds like a plan to me, Jerry. Right, Mark?
All right, I see no more public comment at this point.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Thank you.